Good morning. So today we will be learning about systems of inequalities. The first thing you need to know about systems of inequalities is that in order to graph them, you must have y by itself. And also an important factor of systems of inequalities is the inequality sign. So if the inequality sign has a line underneath it, what does that mean in terms of our line? It's a straight solid line. Good job, guys. If our systems of inequality sign has just a regular inequality greater than or less than sign, what does that mean in terms of our line? It's a dashed line. So for our first systems of inequalities, my first equation, I'm going to create a dashed or dotted line. A solid line. For my second inequality, I will be creating a solid line. Good job, guys. Do we remember how to graph linear equations? Yes, if we need a refresher, I am here to help you. So, we always start at the y-intercept. If you forget what the y-intercept is, I will circle it for you. This is the y-intercept. This tells us to start at -2. From -2, this slope says -x. -x to us means -1x. -1x to us means -1/1x. This means that my slope is -1x/1, which means, which direction am I moving in? Down 1 to the right 1. Good job, students. So from our point here, we're going to go down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1. And if I run out of room, just in case this happens, because this happened to one of my favorite students, and she ran out of room, so she ran out of room going this way. So instead of going down 1 over 1, as she normally would, in order to keep this still -1, she could have also put the negative at the bottom and went up 1 to the left 1. So I could have went up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. And then I will take my line and I will draw it. And it will be a solid line. Maybe it will be straight. Since the technology I'm using is not making it straight, I'm going to fix it. So I know down 1 over 1, and this will need to go right here. And I'll have to erase some of those points because they're not correct. It's hard to count on here. Okay, my next step is to be graphing my arrows and making sure the line goes all the way across. Since it's an inequality sign, I have to look at it and say, is y less than Or is y greater than the line? If the arrow is pointed to the y, like as it is in this equation, see, look, the arrow is pointed to the y, or you can look at it like the y is eating, or the inequality sign is eating, right, the equation. Or y, and that means y is less than. Look at the values of y. Are the y values growing as we go up, or are they lessening? As we go up, they're getting bigger, right? So if we want y is less than, we would shade the bottom, because all of these numbers below are less than. Think of our y-intercept as being what? -2. What y's are below -2? -3, yes. And that will tell us to shade this portion of our graph. We still have to recognize the solutions. So far, is 0, 0 a solution to this inequality? No, because it's not in my shaded portion. Are the points on my line a solution to my inequality? Yes, because it's a solid line. Next, I'm going to pick a different color to graph my line. I'm going to pick pink. Okay, so next I am going to give me 1 second. Let's see. Goodbye, Mr. Lee. Okay, going back to our lesson, we want to shade this in a different color. So we're going to shade this equation in a different color, because in systems of equations, how many lines do we have? 2, right? So how would I shade the second equation? Where am I starting? +2. From there, what is my slope? -5/1, which means down 5 over 1. So then, I'm going to count 5 down. Good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And over 1. So excuse that little mark right there. Okay. So then I'm going to draw my line, right? And my line is going to go from this pink dot to this pink dot. And sometimes it's a little bit hard to get these lines to line up perfectly. Okay, so going back, my inequality sign says what? It says y is what? Greater. Now, this is the only thing I want you to focus on. Do not get confused. Where's the y-intercept for the pink equation? 2. Where are the y's greater? On this side, we're only focused on the y-axis, okay? So you're only focused on this portion and this portion. So if I'm at 2, are my y's greater up here or down here on the other side? At the top. Good. Good job, students. So from this line, I will shade all of this. Usually with systems of inequality or with systems of equations, where is our solution? Where they intersect. Is that the case with inequalities? No, this is where inequalities, the solutions are where? Are where they over, what do you think I'm going to say? Overlap. Good. The only portion of this graph that I could see that overlaps is right here. Do you see that? And I think one of our other students had a really good idea of using a highlighter next time because this is way too dark, right? So if I asked you if -1, -4 was a solution, what would you tell me? Yeah. Yes, because why? It's in the shaded area. So -1, -4 can be a solution because it's in the shaded area. Good job. Great job, guys. Now, if you will flip your sheet over, I'd like to go over some of the more challenging questions, which includes number 6. So as I'm scrolling down, I'm going to go to number 6. Number 6 is actually quite easy. So I'm going to go and I'm going to look at number 7 or number 8? 7. Okay, I'm going to look at number 7. So we are looking at number 7. This time, I am going to use a different color. Okay. I have no highlighting option. So what I'm going to do is try to use a different type of pen so that you guys can see where they overlap. Are you seeing on your papers where they overlap? Is it working out well for you? All right, let's see if I can find, oh, I found a highlighter. All right, let me draw my line first and then I'll shade with a highlighter. Okay, you guys ready? All right, what's wrong with number 7? What should I do first? Anytime I have a graph, but yeah, you're supposed to get the y by itself, right? Is the y alone? No, there's a 4x. So we have the 2 rules: add or subtract the x, then divide by whatever's in front of y, right? So are we adding or subtracting the x? Okay, so we start off with 4x plus y is less than 2. And we're subtracting it. We're not really subtracting, we're just saying we're subtracting because we want to move it over. So then our new equation is going to be, is it going to be negative 4x? Yes. Good job. So this makes it where it's graphable because it's in y equals mx plus b form, right? So to graph anything, it has to be in slope-intercept form. Good. The next one, y is by itself. But it looks a little funny, right? This is the same thing as whenever we had to graph equations that look like this. Remember? And a lot of you were like, oh, that's a y, so it's going to be a vertical line. But remember, it's the opposite of what you think, right? So it's the opposite of what you think. So let's graph this one first. Where would we start? The positive 2. Good. Where would we go? We would count down how many? 4. Okay, so let's count. 1. And sometimes I make, see how big my dot is? Sometimes I make like 1, 2, 3, 4, so that I don't miscount. And then I put another big dot. And 1, 2, 3. Oh, look, I ran out of room. I can go up 1, 2, 3, 4, and over 1. So that's my line. What is different about this line than my first example? It's going to be dashed. How do we know it's going to be dashed? Because of the inequality sign not having a line underneath it. So I'm going to try my best to dash this line. Does it look correct? Good. All right, so let's use the highlighter to highlight. This says y is less than. Bless you. What is the y-intercept? 2. That's where we start on the y-axis. Bless you. Where this says y is less than. Am I going to shade up here on this side of the line or down here? Down here. So let's see if this highlighter is going to work out for me. A little bit, right? Let's see. So, ooh. Leo, it works. How about that? Good job. Zane is the man who said use the highlighter. Good job, Zane. Thank you for that. Next, I'm going to graph the other one in blue. Okay, so I'm going to graph the, oh, no. Sorry, guys. Pen, oh, it's on large. Okay, so I'm going to graph this one. And where does this say start? -2 on the x or y? Y, so -2 right here. Now, it makes sense for my line to be vertical. Wouldn't that just make a y-axis? Like if I do a straight line like that, wouldn't that just make a y-axis? Yeah, that would be crazy. Why would they tell me to make a y-axis, right? It's the opposite of what you think. This is saying right here, whenever we graph this, this is saying y is greater than -2. Where all these points, you remember when I showed you before? All these points, let's tell me what this point is right here. If I just randomly pick this point, it's 5 what? -2. If I randomly pick this point, what is that? -3, -2. If I randomly pick that point, it's -5, -2. What stays the same? The fact that y is what? -2, right? That's why my line is horizontal. Even though it says y equals, that's my line is horizontal. Okay. What did Miss Boland do incorrectly? It's supposed to be a dotted line. Do I have a dotted line? No. Messed up the shading and everything. Okay, so I'm going to make a dotted line. See my dotted line? Why is it important to dot the line? Because the solutions on the dotted line, do they count? No, they don't count. They don't count for anything, right? Oh, so this is going to be my highlighter. Highlighter. I'm going to shade this portion, right? And then for the other one, the y is greater than -2. Is that one hard to figure out? Do I shade up or down? Does that make sense to you guys? Because it says y is greater than -2. So all my values that are greater than -2 are my values. Okay, if this is -2, are these values greater? No. So then I'm going to shade this portion. Do you see where they overlap? What color do they overlap? Purple. What does the purple represent? The solutions, right? So let's talk about is 2 a solution? For both? No. For blue? Yes. For both? What's the answer? No. Okay. What about -4? 4. Is it a solution for both? Yes, a solution for both. So are you understanding how this works? Yes? Okay, good. There is something else I would like to show you as well. If you are given just a graph, right? And a question about your graph. So let's say on your test, you have something like, let me use this one. And then clear screen. So can everybody see this okay? This is completely different than what's going to be on the worksheet, right? Okay, if I asked you to tell me what the solution was, right? If I had a graph that looks like this, and say I put a dot here, right? And I went across the dotted line like this. And then I shaded it. Let me see, 1, 2. So then that is going 2. Oh, what's that? 1. And I'm using the same color here because I use different colors to teach it, but when it comes to your test, they're not that nice. If you were given a graph, how would you tell what the two inequalities were? Do we know the lines? Can you tell me what the lines are? Yeah, so let's look at the first line. The solid line is y equals what? Can you guys tell me that? Is that y equals, is that going to be less than, greater than, equal to? What is that going to be? Y is what? Look right here. Y is greater than, right? But even before we knew that, what's the equation? Where does it start? Yeah, do you see that? Do you see how the dark line, I'm gonna put a dark line right here. It starts at 1. How do I figure out the slope? Yeah, where it starts. It starts from here. It's supposed to go up to here, to here, to here. Watch the slope. Count with me. Up 1 over 1, right? What's the slope? 1x. Okay. And usually this portion would be shaded, right? But it's not going to be shaded because it's only shading the portions in which are, this is the overlap. Does that make sense? They're only, on your test, they're only going to shade the portion that overlaps. So I want you to write this down somewhere. When testing, the shaded portion is the overlap? So what about this other line that we have? Is it a dotted line? Think about what we know about it already. We already know it's a dotted line, right? So we can put y equals. It doesn't have an inequality, but look at this dotted line, okay? The dotted line. If I was going to shade it, right? If I shade it over here, would y be greater or less? It would be greater. So it's shaded over here. It should be shaded down here, but they didn't care to put that because they only wanted to shade the portion that's overlapping, which is the answer. So I know that y is less than. What is the y-intercept? Where does it start on the y? -2. Good. And then how do I figure out the slope? You kind of look at the line, right? And see where it overlaps. So on my paper, you can't really tell, but on my paper, it's going down to 5. So watch this. 1, 2, 3. All right, it goes down 3 and then over 1. So my line's a little bit messed up. So if I go down 3 over 1, what does that mean my slope is going to be? -3 over 1, what? X. Good job. Why is it -3? Because we're looking at just the dashed line right now, right? Focus on the dashed line. We go down 1, 2, 3, and over 1. My line that I drew was a little bit crooked compared to what I'm looking at on my worksheet. Does that make sense? So it was a little bit crooked. So this part I would erase. Just because I drew it crooked. Do you understand? That's the only reason. Okay, so where is the answers? Where they overlap. Are they going to usually show us the 2 overlaps? No, they're usually just going to show us one big giant overlap where all of our answers are. And then you have to tell by looking at the equations. So does everybody understand that? Do you guys have any questions about that? The question would be to give you 2 equations just like I wrote over there, and it would be to match the graph. And we can do some practice equations like that too in order to help you. So what we are going to do next, and what I want you guys to do to practice, is I would like for you guys to complete the couple of questions on USA Test Prep tonight to prepare for your test. I did let you guys know that you have the highest average in the whole 8th grade right now. That's comparing all the algebra teachers. So I'm very proud of you guys for that. And I want you guys to keep that up, okay? I also want you guys to study all your systems of equation notes. And there's a video about how to plug in, you know, our different methods that we had, right? We have the graphing method. We have, and this is without shading, right? This is what we first learned. The graphing method. What else? Substitution and elimination, right? There is a backup plan if you look at a systems of inequality and you can't figure out the answer and it's a multiple choice, right? If you have a coordinate, the coordinate on the left is always the what? The X. The coordinate on the right is always the what? The Y. Can I just plug like one of these answers in, X for X and Y for Y, to see if the left side equals the right side? And if both of those are true, then what does that mean? That means that that's the correct answer, right? Okay, so you guys understand that part. So I will post a video showing you guys how to do that, just in case you get